We're now joined by Austin Meek, Michigan beat writer for The Athletic. And did you ever think you were going to be in this building for the national championship game the last few years?
I did not think so. If you told me this 3 or 4 years ago that we'd be here today, I think I would have thought you were crazy. But excited for it. I think it's going to be a good matchup. I think it's going to be a really good game on Monday.
You know, when I think about this matchup, Austin, I think like very conflicting styles. You've got one team that's kind of, you know, the elite level of what every Big Ten West team wishes they could be, which is, you know, great on the lines, explosive on offense, great quarterback, but also very tough. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have a team that can throw it all over the field and does so with ease, even on fourth down. It's kind of a conflicting style game, and how do you think those usually match up when Michigan's been involved in them?
Yeah, I think the clash of styles is part of what makes this a really interesting matchup. I don't think Michigan's faced a team like Washington. I'm not sure Washington's faced a team like Michigan. Michigan tends to play well against teams that are more finesse teams. I wouldn't necessarily say Washington is a finesse team, but they're not as big maybe as some other teams that Michigan has played this year. I think Michigan's plan is going to be to run to the ball, try to be physical. I mean, that's Michigan's bread and butter all the time. But I think Washington's going to throw some things at Michigan that Michigan hasn't seen this year, starting with Michael Penix.
What do you think the key to the game is?
I think Michigan's got to get pressure on Michael Penix. Similar to what Michigan did against Jalen Milroe. If they let him stand back there, I think he's going to pick them apart. So they got to get pressure on Michael Penix. I think Michigan has to force a couple turnovers. I also think Michigan has to be aggressive on offense. Michigan, I think, has to go into this game thinking they need to score 30. Sometimes Michigan's offense can run kind of hot and cold, but I think Michigan needs to come out from the start and be really aggressive on offense.
Yeah, it's so funny to think because, like, in college football playoff scenarios in the past, I've always thought, if you don't score 38-41, you're probably going to lose. But Michigan has been put in a position where that hasn't been the case, even in an overtime game. Last week, they didn't have to get into the 40s. What do you think it is about Michigan's coaching, their players, and everything that they've done that kind of has helped them avoid the status quo when it comes to getting to the stage? I mean, everything they've done has been kind of the exception to the rule.
Yeah, I mean, P.J. Fleck earlier this year compared Michigan to a boa constrictor. And it really is true that Michigan can slow down the game. And when Michigan gets a lead, it's really hard to come back on this Michigan team because the defense is so good. The Rose Bowl was 20-20 going into overtime, and that is unusual for a playoff game. But Michigan can win those games. I expect this to be a higher scoring game. I think this will be a game in the 30s at least. I think Michigan needs to approach it that way. But Michigan does have the ability to control the ball, limit possessions, slow down the game in the way we haven't really seen from a national champion in recent history.
What is something about this game that you have found out or you think while covering it maybe that just isn't what you're going to hear on the radio or in a podcast? Like, is there something that you think people are missing? I know it's kind of a difficult question, but, you know, something else to it, like on how to analyze it?
Well, if there's a player that I think would be fun to watch, just like for a casual fan watching this game, Will Johnson from Michigan, I think, is a really interesting player. Cornerback, 5-star recruit. You love that, Ari, right? One of the 5-star recruits on this roster. Really talented player. He's been hurt this year. He didn't play the first 3 games. I just talked to him. He said he hasn't really felt healthy until the Rose Bowl. So we haven't really seen the best of Will Johnson this season. He still had a really good year. He's going to probably be defending the best wide receiver for Washington, Rome Odunze. I think that's going to be a really compelling matchup. Like, I would like to be able to just watch those guys go at it on every snap because I think that's going to be a war.
Yeah, that's going to be, when you get good on good like that in a game like this, that type of matchup. I think the story of the day, or a lot of people are talking about Jim Harbaugh, what he's built here, obviously, but also his future. I know that's kind of a sticky situation because there are 2 games before the national championship game, but like, what is your perspective on where Michigan stands with their head coach?
Well, I think the question on everybody's mind is going to be, is this it for Jim Harbaugh? If he wins the national championship, will he ride off into the sunset, go back to the NFL? Win or lose, is this it for Jim Harbaugh? I don't think anybody knows the answer to that question right now. I certainly think it's a possibility. He's explored the NFL. He's been very close to leaving Michigan before. There's some jobs open that I think would be tempting for him. If Michigan wins the national championship, Jim Harbaugh can say that he accomplished everything that he set out to accomplish at Michigan. So it feels like this might be the time, but nobody really knows. I think it's certainly possible that he'll be back too. But I'm ready for another month of January of basically just chasing Jim Harbaugh rumors, which is like every January on the Michigan beat.
Well, it's good for numbers, but I really appreciate you, Austin. I'll let you get back to work, and looking forward to the game, and hopefully we'll have you on moving forward.
All right. Thanks, brother.
All right. Thanks, man.